She goes, oh no, they're not that good. Good to know.
Hi.
So do I ask for a motion for board chair, ask for a second, and then do I say, is there anyone else who wants to make a motion for a board chair? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't vote until everybody.
And then I would say, all those in favor of X and all those in favor of Y. Okay.
Congratulations. Good luck.
Hi. Are you? Okay. Yep.
So MJ, Richard will be driving from,
On the bus.
yeah, and so,
A long
and he
time
said he's
ago?
gonna try to, like, he's now in there on there's no public hearing today. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This meeting is in person at the middle school as well as via Zoom. If you have any problem with Zoom, please call 802-727-0891. So 727-0891 if you have any technical difficulties. We are going to start off with a call to order for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One of our board members is attending this meeting via phone virtually. May I have a motion for Richard Milius to be able to attend the meeting virtually or remotely, please?
We don't have to make that motion.
Why?
Our policy says that we can have remote participation. It doesn't-
We'd have to do the roll call, though.
We have to do a roll call vote, so we don't have to
Okay.
vote for his participation.
Thank you. So we'll skip the need to have that motion, but we will need to do everything via roll call, which means we would say the person's name and they would say aye or nay as we go throughout the meeting. Unless at some point, because he's traveling, he leaves the meeting, then we can just go back to a regular meeting. So this is going to be interesting. Lots of moving parts this evening, but we'll get through it. I'd like to welcome Mary and MJ back to the board and welcome Renee to the board. So thank you very much. The first thing is that I'll let you know that we do have public comment that will occur during the public comment portion of the meeting and done via raising your hand remotely or in person. During public comment, once acknowledged, state your name and ward so it can be included in the minutes. And please limit your time to 3 minutes. I do not know of any additions or deletions to the agenda. And we will move forward with the election of officers. May I have a motion for board chair?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Richard Milius as board chair.
May I have a second?
Second that.
Any other motions for a different board chair? Seeing none, may we do a roll call vote for Richard Milius as board chair, starting with you, Mary?
Yeah. Aye.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So Kristen, yes.
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
Renee, okay. So the vote is all in favor for Richard of being board chair?
Sorry, is Richard voting?
Richard, are you voting?
Yes.
Okay. So, great, it's unanimous. Congratulations, Richard. And we will now move on to, if you'd like me to continue, should I go on to the vice chair?
I think it would be best, Joanne, that once that's done, the vice chair can chair the remainder of the meeting.
That makes sense to me as well. Thank you. May I have a motion for vice chair, please? Kristen,
I'd like to make a motion to nominate MJ for vice chair.
may I have a second?
I'll second.
Great. Aaron? Anyone else who'd like to make a motion for a vice chair? Seeing none, we'll go through with the roll call vote again, please.
Yes.
Mary, say your name first and then the,
Oh,
and yeah.
Mary.
That's great.
Eads. Yes.
Thank you.
MJ, yes.
Kristen, yes.
Stephen, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Lisa, yes.
Lil, yes.
Renee, yes.
And Richard,
Richard, yes.
congratulations, MJ. Would you like to come to the center or do you want to be where you are for this meeting? It's quite up to you.
I'll stay where I am.
Okay. Richard, will you be continuing listening into the meeting or will you be signing off as you're traveling home?
I'd like to remain through public comment, please.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay, I would like to continue on and have a nomination for board secretary.
I nominate Lil as board secretary.
Do I have a second? Okay, any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call. Mary?
Mary, yes.
MJ, yes.
Kristen, yes.
Stephen, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Lisa, yes.
Lil, yes.
Renee, yes.
Richard, yes.
Okay, the vote is unanimous. Lil is the secretary. Okay, now move, do we move back to public comment now, or continue on?
Yes, I don't see it written separately, so.
Okay.
So-
It's number 4, so we kind of skipped to
Yeah.
number 5. So we'll go back to number 4 and have public comment per policy BEDH. You have 3 minutes to comment, and please state your name and ward.
I do not see anyone in public coming to the microphone. I do not see any hands raised virtually.
Okay, that now concludes the public comment portion of our meeting. Correspondence, and I guess because Lil's kind of on the spot, being new, new to her secretary roles, I can go ahead and say that there is some public correspondence. There was one comment regarding the SRO vote. There was a comment regarding masking. There was some correspondence regarding some vaccine legislation at the State House right now in New Hampshire. There was a letter about the principal resignation, and then there was a letter about the Hanover Street renovation plans.
Is Dick still on? I have a quick question about the correspondence file. Is Dick still here?
Are you still the
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Dick. So I just wanted to clarify. So, and I might be misunderstanding this, and so that's why I wanted to ask. So it's my understanding that when someone writes to the board chair about a piece of business that involves the entire board, right? They're writing to the board chair as a representative of the board, that all of those pieces of correspondence then would be put into the correspondence folder. Is that correct, or am I?
That is correct.
Okay. So my second question is, when the chair responds to a correspondence that is, again, about something affecting the whole board, are we routinely CC'd on those responses? And the reason I'm asking is just because I guess I want to know what it is that, since the board is talking in behalf of the board, I'd like to know what the board is saying. If for no other reason, then I want us to be on the same page. So I just wasn't sure what policy we were doing for that.
I have thought, my feeling on that was that if the correspondence went into the correspondence folder, that would be available for the board to see. If that's not effective, we can certainly look at other ways of doing it.
I'm sorry, you were a little bit garbled. Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, my practice has been to have all those, my responses put in the board correspondence folder for the board to see.
Okay.
Perhaps it would be useful if I were to notify the board that something has gone in. I'm not sure how best to do that.
I mean, I think it doesn't matter as long as it's consistent. That was just my question. If the policy is as soon as you respond, then that's also going to go in the correspondence folder, then that's great. Or the practice is, that's fine too. I just wanted to make sure we were all clear on what the practice was, just because I think we never really talked about that, and that was a new thing as of the SRO discussion last year, so I wanted to clarify.
That's correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, to consent agenda, I need a motion to approve the public hearing minutes from February 23rd.
I'll make a motion to approve the public hearing minutes from February 23rd.
I can second that.
Okay, motion by Lil, second by Stephen. Are there any comments, corrections? Okay, is Richard still with us? Do we still need to do a roll call? Okay.
Yes.
Let's do, yeah, I'll vote on this and then I'm going to take off.
You'll vote on all the important stuff. Okay, so Mary?
I wasn't here.
Oh, so abstain.
Abstain.
MJ, approve.
Kristen, yes.
Stephen, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Lisa, yes.
Lil, yes.
Renee abstains.
Okay.
Richard, yes.
Richard, yes. So that's 7 yes, 2 abstentions. And then I need a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from February 23rd.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from February 23rd, 2022.
Do I have a second?
Sure.
Stephen, second. Anybody have any comments, corrections? If nobody else did, I did have one. Let's see. Under 8C, after the motion, we're talking about the time frame of removing the mask, and it says whether or not the 14th is soon enough. And then it says this will be addressed at the March 23rd meeting. I believe what we were going to address was not the removal of the mask, but it was the school reopening plans. So I think we might want to clarify that.
Yeah, so we decided that we did the March 14th was soon enough. We all supported that, and then we discussed whether the rest of the plans would be shown at this meeting.
Right. So I think we just need to clarify that we were never going to rediscuss the mask at this meeting. It was the reopening plans, the revision to the reopening plans. And then under 8D, something went wrong with that motion. We have who seconded it, but we don't have who actually made the motion.
And I guess it's you.
It possibly could. I don't remember that far back.
I'm pretty sure it was you.
But I do actually kind of think it was me. So. I was motion happy for the money, I guess. And that's all I have. Any other corrections, comments? Okay, we'll take a vote. Mary?
Mary abstains.
MJ approve.
Kristen, yes.
Stephen, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Lisa, yes.
Lil, yes.
Renee abstains.
Richard, yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved, 7 yes, 2 abstentions.
MJ, I'm going to leave now.
Thank you, enjoy your bus trip home.
Billy is out.
Put that in the minutes.
Okay, I'd like to move on to the student report and have Miles come up and give a report, please. Oh, sorry. 1 second. Apparently I'm failing in my duties as vice chair. I'd like a motion to approve the nominations and acknowledge the resignations and retirements.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussions or comments, Joanne?
Just that we held our interviews for assistant principal, and we are looking forward to having Elizabeth Bailey be the Mount Leb assistant principal, as well as our district director of ECIA, Lisa Scalero. I'm looking forward to working with all of those folks.
Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll take a vote, and we can do it the old-fashioned way with a show of hands. All those in favor? 0 opposed, so it's 8-0. The motion is approved.
Now it's Miles.
Okay, now Miles. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Good evening. My name is Miles Sturgis. I'm a junior at Lebanon High School, and I'm the moderator of LHS Council. I have a bit of an update on student life. Juniors took the SATs today, and freshmen and sophomores took the PSATs, and the seniors enjoyed a day off from school. We also have our 3v3 basketball tournament run by LHS's own Bonnie Robinson coming to a close soon. Down to the Final Four, which plays tomorrow with a championship on Friday. Council has received donations from various businesses with gift cards as prizes for the champion. I had the pleasure this past weekend of going on the Model UN trip to New York City, and it was very successful, and LHS represented the nations of Bahrain and Chile well. Just 3 weeks away, 5 students, including myself and 2 staff from LHS, are shaping up to go to Italy on the ACIS Good Morning Italy trip. Many students are excited about that, and also about the approval of the LHS Band and Chorus trip to Disney next year, as well as the approval of the LHS trip to Greece next year. Regarding the relaxing of the mask mandate, expectedly, students and staff are having mixed reactions. Many students and staff are enjoying not having to wear masks anymore, but many are also worried about a possible increase in COVID cases that may happen due to the relaxing of the mandate and do not agree with the board's decision. Personally, I've only seen respect between people at LHS with different opinions on masking. Update from council. We, as I said earlier, gathered donations for 3v3 basketball tournament prizes. We are in the planning phases for the homecoming dance this fall, which at a previous board meeting I mentioned is the first homecoming dance to happen in many years at LHS. We are also currently planning Spring Fest. We are also having a spring council retreat in mid-April to do a lot of committee work. Myself and the assistant moderator of council, Mary Rainey, will be observing Hanover Council in April, as they have a historically exemplary council program, and Mary and I will look for ways in which LHS and LHS Council may be improved, as well as offer suggestions to the moderator of Hanover Council, Pierce Singh, and just generally engage in valuable discussion. And finally, we are nearing the stage for elections for next year's LHS Council, and we're looking into adding possibly one more spot to council for students who are new to the district, so they have someone to represent them. Thank you.
Thanks, Miles.
Any questions for Miles? Lil?
Yeah, I have a question, Miles. Not a question, a comment. I just want to commend you for making a connection with the Hanover Council. I think that's a great idea. I think getting best practices from the schools around us is always beneficial to us, from student council on up to school board. So I appreciate your reaching out to them and making that connection.
Of course. 2 years ago, Hanover Council asked Lebanon Council to be a part of a student voice summit, which ended up not happening because of COVID, but other schools were going to be involved. So we're looking into pursuing that with Hanover next year.
Perfect.
as well.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any other questions or comments for Miles? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to SAU leadership team updates. We have the superintendent update. Joanne?
Sure, I'll give my update, and then we'll walk through the 5-day voluntary masking plan that's in the packets. So we finalized the back-to-school voluntary masking information, and I really appreciated the work of the team that we've put together. For several years now, we've worked putting materials out and gathering together to figure out procedures and protocols for COVID, so I appreciate their help. The dashboard link continues to be updated. I've contacted Concentric about canceling testing. We have to let them know if we're on breaks and things like that. I'm also going to be ordering some more supplies. There's the potential of this new variant coming through, and I just want to make sure that we're all set and good to go. As of now, we are good with the home test. I ordered the last set that the state was providing, and we had some that we had purchased. And when I went to the professional conference in Concord, I picked up the last set of kits and gave them to all of our nurses. At Mount Leb, the update about the renovation project. So there's a second set of soil testing, and that was performed last Friday. And the findings are that the soils are subpar, but a standard foundation can be used rather than a more elaborate and expensive foundation. The risk, as with any project with this type of soil, is down the line, the structure may shift, leading to cracked floor tiles and concrete, etc. And although it's unlikely, a larger issue may occur. And Tim and I have been in contact with District Legal Counsel about insurance coverage if an issue comes up in the future, as well as talking with the architects and the contractors about their obligations if something were to happen down the line. We met with Dana, Tim, Marinus Architects, Ekman, and Katie Roach to discuss next steps, the bidding process, and the summer scope. We're actually going to be meeting in person twice. I think that's really important. We're going to get everyone in this group together, walk through Mount Leb, and then the following week we're going to invite the city inspector and the fire department to come through. As you may know, it took many years to get the certificate of occupancy for this building, and I think that the more we can communicate and get people together, the better off we're going to be. So we are going to be doing that. The great news is that the Hanover Street School and the high school project was passed by the voters. So we're signing a contract with Marinese Architects and Ekman. Those are the groups that are working at Mount Leb to oversee the renovation project there. So while we are moving with Mount Leb forward with the design plans, starting this summer, we start the design plans for the Hanover Street School and high school project. So they'll kind of roll out. We're thinking Mount Leb will take through next school year because there's so much to do. One of the challenges with projects right now is just the costs are high. There aren't a lot of subcontractors to do work, and things like steel are 6 months out. So keeping the conversations going, trying to stay on top of things, try to keep the project moving ahead is really important. We're facing the same thing that everybody else is facing. I just wanted to let everyone know where we are in those projects. As far as the equity survey, Deo and I met with student council, and then we had a presentation with Lebanon staff members and SALT members. A parent meeting is scheduled for tomorrow, and there'll be a school board presentation on April 6th. Welcome letter and information was sent to Mary and Renee. For finance and facilities, the upcoming meeting will have to be talking about the projects, Seminary Hill, and the track. P&M, I'll be scheduling meeting dates to discuss negotiations. So in talking with Jim O'Shaughnessy, we're looking at the beginning of May for LSA, and then into May again for LAG. So we'll do the Secretaries Association first, and then we'll do LAG, which is the Lebanon Administrators Group, second. So the goal is to do both of those this spring, because next year we have Lebanon support staff, and that's a very large negotiation. So we had agreement that we would wrap these up this spring, and everyone's all set to go for the school year. We have policies in the packet. Our next meeting is Thursday the 7th at 8:30 a.m. I participated in the meeting at Hartford, so HACTC, Hartford Area Career Tech Center. They are proposing a literacy support position. They started many years ago, I want to say 6 or 7, with a math support person, not only supporting students, but supporting the staff. And they have seen their math scores go up, and they're doing very well. And the literacy coach, they think, is really important to add to their staff team. And I've had communication with board members to keep you folks up to date on things as they come through. As mentioned, Mount Leb principal and assistant principal positions are now filled. I look forward to working with Katie and Elizabeth, and also with Lisa Scalero. We put her nomination forward today, which is great. We're able to get it on there. It says for next time, but she's all set. Lebanon Middle School principal applications have been reviewed, and interviews are scheduled for Tuesday. I held monthly meetings with the principal and attended the personnel conference in Concord. I met with Karen Woolsey, Director of Student Services, regarding student matters, followed up on a personnel matter, facilitated the SALT meeting. We finalized the voluntary masking plan, talked about summer program locations, and we had an update from administrators who attended the emergency response workshop in Concord. That was a multi-day conference focused on communication and response in an emergency. In April, I've scheduled a meeting, should be Dr. Ray Chin, and our school psychologist to talk about supporting students and staff social and emotional health. I met with a LHS student working on his thesis for a course. His focus was on school start and end times. Sent information to families and staff members in the event that our schools do need to close. We used the 2 traditional snow days, so we'd be going to a remote day if that were to occur. And I met with Denise Matthews, she's the chair of PLDC, to talk about the upcoming PD days and plans for next school year. I really appreciate Denise's work on the committee. Any questions?
I have a question about the child after-school care issue and what is the plan, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, so we don't have any connection to it, but we house it. And so they let us know, I think a few days ago or a week ago, that they are closing all of their after-school programs due to lack of staffing and resources. So we are going to try to reach out in order to try to support our families because we know how important childcare is, but we also know that there's not a lot of childcare in the Upper Valley. It's a real issue. So whatever we can do to try to connect with another agency that can come into our schools, we are on top of it. We are racing toward it because all of the schools are looking for an after-school program.
Right.
So we are, the second we heard about it, we were right on it, trying to find out what we can do. And we hope we can find some agency, organization that will come in and help our families throughout the rest of the school year.
Have you thought about like the model that happens in an infield where they have parents doing like after school, they do like 3 to 6, one time a week, one parent does. I mean, they sort of do a co-op of that as an option.
We haven't because we first want to try to do something through an organization, but if that doesn't come through, we kind of need to and want to think about like a plan B. We'd have to work carefully with Tim in regard to insurance and all those kinds of things. What's nice is we have an organization, they're fingerprinting it, they have people who truly are, not the parents aren't, but experienced in running these kinds of programs. So it's not something I would prefer to do.
Yeah,
if
not
we
as a
don't
first
have to,
choice,
but
but-
if we can, however we can support our families, we're definitely open to it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, this is coming up pretty quickly. It's like the 8th that they're done, right before vacation.
Yes. Any other?
Question I had may be actually more for Tim, but it relates to something that you brought up, Joanne. The anticipated delays in construction because of material availability and all the other issues. Do you know, Tim, are there any deadlines or timeline restrictions from ESSER funds or any of the government funds that we have to spend those dollars by a certain date?
Yeah, for Mount Leb, there are 2 pots of money, 2 ESSER pots. One expires, the smaller pot, ESSER 2, expires in September of '23. So, that's like $400,000. So we'll spend that money first. So you ask for reimbursement every month. And so even if we get going a little later than we wanted to, which there's all kinds of other issues, but from a money standpoint, we'll spend that money first, won't be a problem. And then the next ESSER pot goes until September 25, I believe. So we should be fine on that. More of an issue of having enough money in the ESSER grant to pay
Sure.
for what comes in, so.
Thanks.
Lil?
I have another question, not about that. You said you picked up the last set of COVID tests, right? And these are the COVID tests that they're using in the schools through Concentric, or these are the home tests? What COVID tests did you pick up?
The last set that I picked up were home tests, and it was the last round at that time that was being funded through the Department of Human and Health Services. And I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure that we got that last set. We have ordered through a company as well, and then through Concentric, we'll order more of the test for pool testing and things like that, and order it right through them, and they send it to the schools.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? So I have one just about the foundation. So how much more expensive was the foundation? Because to me, I'm a little concerned if we know that the soil may be faulty, that we probably are going to have the cracks. So I'm just curious how much more expensive the foundation was to go with the better one.
We didn't go out and price it. The cost that I had heard was between $250,000 and $300,000 for the foundation. It would also mean that in order to do all the design planning for that, they wouldn't be able to do the project this year. It would be an entire year out to start the Mount Leb project. That is why Tim and I have looked into making sure we looked at the subcontractors, contracts with the district. I called the district attorney, and we also contacted our insurance company. If down the line we need to do more work, how might that get paid for? They just don't know. It could be perfectly fine, or we could build something where we see the floors uneven and the tiles start to crack, and we might have to go in and do that kind of work and fix it.
So they seem to think, though, that you can get an insurance policy against that, even though you're going in with a known construction potential problem?
So the question that I explored this morning was, if there's settling or there's cracking or whatever, like what is covered under insurance? And so this is in general, and at least in most commercial insurances, certainly here, it was true when we had Primex and it's true now. So if there's wear and tear over the course of a building's life, that's not covered. Those of you may remember we had an issue with the beams over the weight room at the high school a few years ago that we happened to notice by chance that the roof was sagging when someone was walking on it. So we had a structural engineer come out, and most of the beams that are on that roof had some cracks in them. They're wooden beams from the 50s. And at the time I was kind of grumpy because our previous insurance company wouldn't cover that because it was wear and tear, the age of it. But a new insurance company, they were saying, yeah, that sounds about right actually. So it's not really, that's an example of, although, there were cracks in it stuff, it just was over time. There's no way to really say that was a shoddy workmanship or shoddy materials. So fast forward to this project, if there was some sort of cracking over time, the point is wear and tear is not covered. Some sort of catastrophic incident like a collapse or a wall caving in or something that's really, really quick. So, if you put a building up in it within a matter of months, there's something, or a short period of time, there's something that's leaning, they're more likely to cover it. So I know this is not an exact answer, but this is how insurance companies talk. So if there's an issue and it looks like it wasn't wear and tear, they will cover it, and then they will try to subrogate against someone they think might be responsible. So hope that makes sense.
Okay. Any more questions? Joanne, you want to go into the
Sure,
5-day in-person plan?
absolutely. So this is in the board packet, and it is also online. The key factors to sustaining a 5-day in-person model include the health of our staff, including our substitutes, the health of our students and families, and the health of the Lebanon community members. There are two important purposes for mask use. According to DPHS, the two different important purposes is to protect the person wearing the face mask and prevent spread of COVID from the person wearing a face mask to others. DPHS COVID update. As of February 23rd, the Omicron surge is decreasing in New Hampshire and nationally. As population immunity increases, there has been a decline in severity of COVID-19. COVID-19 vaccination has been available to all school-age children since the beginning of November 2021. COVID-19 is expected to continue to circulate. It remains uncertain what the future baseline might be, but at this time, risk is decreasing. Therefore, DPHS is no longer recommending universal masking, and this may change if the number of positive cases and/or hospitalization increases, and DPHS recommendation based on local community data. When are masks required or recommended in school? They are required per DHHS and CDC guidelines. They still must be worn when shortening isolation and quarantine to 5 days, and we put the link to the CDC in there. And should a student refuse to wear a mask when required, based on the current CDC DHHS guidance above, we would contact the parent and the child will be sent home, or we've had a situation where the parent just allowed the child to stay in. What we didn't want to do is have administrators kind of play that role with the child, but also if a parent's sending their child to school with a mask and they're not wearing the mask, we wanted to let the parents know that the child isn't wearing a mask. Things have gone very well so far. I would have to say very smoothly. I'm in the buildings a lot, and as Miles said, just like some of us are wearing masks and some aren't, it's very much so the same way in classes that I've walked through. So when are masks required or recommended in school? Recommended when people who are severely immunocompromised should consider wearing a face mask for their own protection when indoor public locations. It's recommended. Any person who wants additional protection for themselves or others in their home can choose to wear a face mask when indoor public locations. And masking on buses was no longer required. So per the CDC, school staff members and students no longer required to wear masks on school buses. Students and staff members will be permitted to eat on the bus for field trips, athletic and co-curricular events, and this also includes Hartford students. So masks are not required for recess or during meals when not eating. Students and staff will physically distance as the assigned space permits. We'll be returning over time to the LHS and LMS students eating meals in the cafeteria and the computer lab based on space needs. Hanover Street and Mount Lev students will continue to have meals in the classroom through the school year. And we talked a bit about if a parent would like their child to continue to wear a mask, it's the child's responsibility to wear the mask on school buses and during the school day. If a child refuses to wear the mask, the parent will be called to either pick up the child or the child can remain in school without wearing a mask. And parents have already let these folks know if they want their child to wear a mask or not. So we started this March 14th. Students and staff members will attend school 5 days per week. This part is where it blends with the older version that was approved in the fall. We do have an option for remote learning except when there's no more traditional snow or emergency days. Meetings with staff members and parents can be held in person. Some parents really appreciate being able to Zoom. We do have some families where transportation is really hard. So we're going to work within our community to meet however we can. We can invite guest speakers back, and the principals, if they have an opportunity for volunteers, they will let Diane Estes know, and they'll coordinate that activity. We will continue to keep the number of hours needed per the school year and keep our regular pre-pandemic 5-day in-person school schedule, so the school schedule is listed. We have used our 2 traditional snow days, so for the next snow or emergency day, we'll move to remote learning rather than add days to the end of the school year. The school-based remote learning plans were reviewed and updated. They are located on the slide through Google Drives and have been shared with parents. We want to continue to talk about supports for social, emotional, and mental health. And we'll continue to offer support from school administrators, teachers, paraeducators, school psychologists, behavior specialists, student assistance providers, student support providers, counselors, and nurses. We will continue to provide support from outside agencies, and we encourage families and students to contact any one of us with questions, concerns, or needs for support. We're here to help, so feel free to reach out to us. In the approval of the budget, there was the approval of the social worker position. I posted for that position, and I'll be holding interviews for that in a few weeks. We will continue to implement facilities methods to increase ventilation, support hand washing with good respiratory etiquette, require individuals with symptoms to remain home and test for COVID, require students and staff with symptoms to produce a negative COVID test result before returning to school. That's why we have the home tests, so we can give those to parents in case they need them. We'll maintain the COVID dashboard on Fridays when school is in session. We'll continue to follow DHHS isolation and quarantine recommendations and protocols and update families accordingly when recommendations and protocols are updated. We'll continue to remain flexible because new information will continue to come to our attention. We'll continue to partner together as a community to mitigate the transmission of COVID and try to keep our staff, students, families, and community members safe. And we are incredibly grateful for the dedication of our administrators and staff members and for the support of the Lebanon, Plainfield, and Grantham communities. And at the very end, there's links to the guiding documents and consultants. I didn't get a lot of feedback in regard to the plan. I think it made sense for families. And I think that we're doing the best as we can to support people's decisions in school. Any questions? Yes.
Just, oh, sorry. Did you get any feedback from teachers, or is everything going okay?
Teachers were appreciative that we took that extra week or 2. I did receive a call from the commissioner because we didn't do it right away and had a conversation about the board meeting and our steps and our plans, and that we did have a date. We were heading toward that date, and that was our conversation.
Could you clarify? So Edelblut called you himself?
Correct.
And asked about the Lebanon School Board decision on masking. Interesting, okay.
Yes, I believe he received reactions from parents in another community that we're associated with, and when that superintendent said they're not the only school district that's not moving yet toward voluntary masking, our district name was mentioned. So he called me. But I've spoken to him many times. I support that the board made a decision and gave me a directive, and I let him know that I was following the board's directive. So they were aware of what schools were doing throughout the state.
I have a question, a couple questions. And I can't see if we have, do we have the principals on today? Are they, no? Okay. So I'll ask you and then you can ask them. So one of the questions I have with regard to recess at the elementary schools is previously they've been masking at recess, so obviously they don't have to do that anymore. I mean, masks are welcome, but it's voluntary. But the other question is they've been keeping the kids in pods in recess, right, by classroom pods. And so are they going to maintain those classroom pods? Are they going to allow the kids to circulate freely during recess? And if so, when is that going to happen?
I know that Jack was, being a larger school, the cohorts were impacting the entire schedule. So I don't know how he might change recess, but we have SALT tomorrow, and I could ask both Katie. So what you're asking is, when the students go out at recess, they might be all second grades, and
Do
can
they
the
have to
second
stay in their-
graders intermingle?
Yeah,
and
do they have
play,
to
not
stay in
by
their
teacher
cohorts, but can they
class?
intermingle, or can they intermingle with
Okay.
whoever's out at recess with them at the time?
Sure.
The other question I have, and I'm trying to find it, I was looking for the current, this year's MOA about health recommendations that we made with the teachers about, and I can only find from last year, and I don't know if we have a current one for this year about the agreement with regard to health protocols. Do we have a specific one for this year, or is it?
Well, this year, the MOA focused on us providing the PPE for our staff. There were conversations about the fact that the federal government no longer had COVID days, and so we didn't have COVID days in our district. We had sick bank days in our district. I know that those two things stick in my head, Tim. I don't know what else is in there.
All I can say, I'm trying to look it up. So last year there was one that was specifically mentioned as health and safety, and then there was another one or two. This year there's only one MOA.
Okay.
It's not labeled health and safety, but some of those topics are addressed in it. I have to pull it up to read it.
So just my question was, because in the last one, because I know there's only one and it was all sort of put together this year. In the last one, there was a specification that we would be always following whatever DPHS's recommendations were, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my question is that language still in the current MOA? And if so, if we have a local spike or a local change, right, and we now have this mandate from the state, DPHS is no longer recommending certain things or not allowing mandates, how do we negotiate that? We put it in originally to protect
Right.
teachers,
So
and I don't want us
the-
to put in a position where we're no longer able to protect teachers because of what the state has decided.
Well, the state has decided to not have schools mandate masking. DPHS still is an agency responsible for our health. So if we had a major breakout in Lebanon, we're still reporting to them COVID cases that we're aware of.
Right.
So we would be calling them and saying, we have a local outbreak. What are your recommendations for us as a school district?
Right.
So, and we would follow that. That would balance us outside of the governor's
Okay.
mandate.
That was my question.
Yeah.
What
I mean,
kind of-
would I get the calls? Yes.
Yes.
Would I answer the calls?
Yes.
Would we say, but we had the recommendation from your agency, DPHS, to do X, Y, and Z? That would be what we would need to do. And they've always said that right now, things are decreasing, right? The levels are decreasing, but with this next variant that might be coming around, if things spike up again, we would be in contact with them and seek their guidance. And they've always been very helpful with their guidance.
And that's just sort of my overall question, because we didn't talk about this in the slides, but I want us to still be able to be flexible and nimble, right? Because we know that it's very localized, and if we have ramped down, if we ever need to, and I don't hope that we don't, but if we ever needed to ramp back up, I just want us to be able to understand what freedom do we have, what ability do we have to respond locally.
Yes, and that's why we kept this first slide in about the health and safety is the priority, and followed up by the reasons why people may mask. We kept that in there. There was concern that people would say that masking didn't do anything, and it was very clear from DPHS that they wanted the message to be that masking is one of the layers of the Swiss cheese.
Great, thank you. And I have one other question, but I want to give anybody else a chance first.
It's not necessarily a question, it's more of a request. So in there, it says, require students and staff with symptoms to produce a negative COVID test before returning to school. In their next newsletters, could the nurses just clarify that they're accepting or continuing to accept the home test plus the PCR test? Because as state testing sites wind down, I just want people to know what kind of test they can produce to the school. Having recently been in this situation, I combed the letters, I noticed it suddenly has disappeared and it's not in there, so I wasn't sure what kind of test I needed to produce for the symptoms. So I think it would be helpful for parents, even or just some kind of reminder that these are the different types of tests that we are accepting in the school nursing office to get you back to school.
And what constitutes proof for an at-home test, right? Because after 20 minutes, you can't show anybody the test because it's no longer valid, right? So we're taking people's word for it, obviously, which is great, but let's state that so that we know.
Well, or state the protocol, because I think it used to be you had to write your student's name and date on the test and take a picture and send it in. So if that's the rule we're playing by, that's great, but I think we all need to be reminded of that.
Sure.
And then I have one more question about the supports for social and mental health slide. So I know that it's going well, and I really appreciate the fact that it has been very respectful. I also know that this first week, at least in the middle school, there were several students who went home because they were just sort of traumatized by the lack of masking around them. Mm-hmm. And I want to know if we are, it says, we're continuing to support, but are we making active connections with those kinds of students, right? So that when we have an identified student who has a risk tolerance that's lower than other people in their class, are we reaching out to them proactively as opposed to waiting for them to reach out to us? Because if they had to leave, that seems like a demonstration that we would want to follow up and.
Yeah, I can ask SALT members about that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, and we'll move on to the business administrator update.
In your packet is the report I've been putting out for you new board members. It's a format of just looking at the different, what they call functional areas, and what was budgeted versus what's been spent, and seeing the total. This goes through February 28th. And really not much has changed. It is looking we are starting to be a little bit further behind than I was hoping we were going to be. So we'll see how it goes the next couple of weeks. And during SALT tomorrow, I'm going to talk to the principals about unused supply money. For example, there's about $400,000 in supplies that have not been purchased yet. That's just one example. And then what will happen is right before April break, we'll shut down the spending, see where we are, get an assessment of what more we might need to purchase that hasn't been encumbered by April break. And then we'll start reporting to the board on how much money might be available for end-of-year projects or to reserve maybe to help with the Mount Lab costs, things like that. So that's the process over the next couple of months. And then we use this information we get for this year to inform us for the next budget year. For example, there's money left in transportation on this one, and the budget we just passed, I had cut back on some of the transportation wages, for example. So we'll try to use this to sort of inform us for the future, supplies for next year. Once we get a good handle on what supplies are, maybe our supply budget needs to decrease next year, or maybe there's just something they were waiting until springtime to order. We'll have to look at that. Of the supplies, about $100,000 of that money is unspent COVID. We put money in the budget for COVID supplies, just in case, about $100,000, and most of that probably will not be spent, because we're good on masks and other PPE, but when you did this 18 months ago, we just didn't know. So I'll look for any questions you might have, see if I can research them if I don't know the answer.
I just have one question about the transportation administration.
Yeah.
So it's 102% of the budget.
So there's a transportation administration is a lot of that is Paula's salary, and then there's fuel, and there's, when Paula goes and drives, for example, it's gonna be billed to there, but that actually needs to move. So I'll be making journal entries as we get to the end too. So, if $10,000 of that was her actually driving a bus, then that needs to move to regular ed. So there's some journal entries I'll have to do. So that, then we'll be overspent at the end of the day. Just that you can't, to do it payroll by payroll is pretty intense, so.
And related to that, are you concerned about the rising fuel costs and factoring into this budget overall?
Good question. I think I'm more worried about next year than this year. I think we're okay this year. And next year we did, I tried to trim the transportation budget a little bit, and can't do much about it. So it's not that I'm not concerned, but I guess we just have to live with it. The buses we bought, the 3 buses we bought are gasoline. So I think that's one good thing, is that gas is cheaper than diesel. So at least 3 of our main buses will be a little cheaper per gallon, but it could be concerning. We'll know more in the fall.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I have a couple other things if there's no more questions.
I had one.
Okay.
So athletic transportation, why is that one down so much? Because I thought we were running normal sports schedules this year. Is it just because we haven't had bus drivers to drive them?
Well, I think there's a few things. I think I need to take a look and make sure that it goes back to the 102% or whatever it was. Make sure that, if X driver drives a route and then goes on a trip, that we're making sure that I scrub that to make sure that the part of the day when they were doing an athletic trip gets transferred. So I think that'll help a little bit. We are struggling having enough drivers. Buses are fine, but having enough drivers to run trips, bus trips, athletic trips at the same time. So this spring, for example, we're gonna have to pay for it. We're probably gonna have to pay for a contractor. So you might see that catch up as we pay more for a contractor, because we have many, many trips, athletic trips that we can't do because they have to leave at 1 o'clock and you can't. There's a lot of different factors at play. Other schools, when their spring break is, when ours are, when you can get on the fields. And sometimes, a lot of times, Paula will try to say, hey, can we start the game? Can we leave a little later for the game? And it's looking, as I knew last week, there are 8 trips that we may have an issue with doing ourselves because we have to drive people home. We can't go across the state. So that might adjust as we have to maybe contract with Butler for some buses. We have a pretty good relationship, but they struggle with the same issue. I'd love to give you a bus, Tim, but I can't. So we'll get it figured out.
Okay. You said you have something else, Tim?
Just a couple other things. Next time, I'm getting food service updates that are good, so there's some good news. So I'll give you an update on food service as far as revenues and stuff this year. Next time, I'm going to give you, the audit is done, and I got the reports just a couple of days ago, so I'll put the letter from the auditors in the board packet, and you'll get an actual physical audit to read next time. If you're new to the board, Mary, I don't know if you need to. I was going to say we need you to come and fill out paperwork so you can get paid, but you just work.
I thought I did that.
You did that recently?
I did a lot of paperwork.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You too, Renee? All right, sweet. And then the budget paperwork is called MS-22, so after you finish the budget, I got to put everything together and break it down in a different way for the state. That's a report that needs to be signed, so it worked well last time as Panda Doc. So look for that between now and Monday. Hopefully by Friday, I'll Panda Doc it to you if you can sign it. It's not any surprises. It takes the budget warrant article and the bond warrant article and the teacher's contract, smushes them all together. And so when you get a document that says it's like $54 million, that's because it's including the $14 million bond. All right? So you'll look for that.
Can I ask a question about that? I think I remember, we don't always check our SAU emails, so could you just give us a heads up about what's the time frame? Like, you send it to us and we have a few days or something, or is it like you need it immediately? Because I think last year you had to text me or something. I don't know.
It's due on Monday, so my goal is to get it to you by Friday.
Okay.
I might be able to do it tomorrow.
Everybody check your mail this weekend.
Yeah. Maybe tomorrow, but I don't overpromise, so you will have it by Friday, and then if you can get it back to me by Monday, close the business.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Anything else, Tim?
Okay.
Moving on to new business, discussion of school board committee assignments. So Richard would like you all to email him directly what assignments you would be interested in for your committees for the upcoming year.
And I wrote them down while people were talking, just for new folks, you might not know all the different committees. Education committee, and that, it always depends on membership, but it usually meets around 4 o'clock. Finance and facilities, we have met during the day. We've most been recently meeting around 4 o'clock. Personnel negotiations is usually board members who've been on the board for a while, and it usually could be days or it could be evenings as well. Policy committee, the last year or so, we've been meeting at 8:30 in the morning. Area meetings, there's area reps. That's the board that is Grantham, Plainfield, and Lebanon. We meet a few times a year. That's usually at 6 o'clock. And this year we are traveling to each school, so it's not always here. And Hartford Area Career and Tech Center, that meets at 10 a.m., usually between 10 and 12, and we meet 4 times a year. And I think those are the main committees.
SWAC.
Oh, SWAC, is that a 2:30 or a 3:30?
I don't know, I'm not on it, I don't know.
SWAC is the school wellness.
Wellness Advisory Committee.
Yeah, and that's during the day, that's through Diane Estes. Yeah. And so you're saying it's usually like 3 or 3:30 or something? Something like that, yeah. And that's a few times a year, maybe 3 times a year or something?
Yeah, it's like once a quarter.
Okay.
And then there's the city meeting too, right?
Oh, yeah, there's a school city task force, joint task force. We usually meet 3 times a year, 6 o'clock, and sometimes we meet here and sometimes we meet in City Hall. Most recently, City Hall, because they have fancy technology. The city, it's very impressive.
So when you're signing your Panda doc for Tim, you can at the same time email Richard your preferred committee assignments. See, a little plug for you too. Okay, we have a discussion and action. It looks like the policy committee is up. Is that still you, Kristen? Yes. So we have a couple first readings that we need to go through.
Yeah, sorry. Let me just look at the. Yeah, so we met February 24th and looked at a number, I'm not sure if I've seen any minutes from that, but that might be my mistake. But so some are up for a first read and some are have been reviewed, some are optional. So we are bringing forward, let's see, some new policies and communicable and infectious diseases. These are all, and for Renee, this took me quite a while to know that the policies are actually on the website, which can, and these numbers are according to the categorization system. So, yeah, I'm figuring out how do we want to.
So I think doesn't somebody waive the first reading and we go one by one and just give an overview of the changes? And I'd be happy to do that if you want me to.
Yeah, you can do that. I just have mini notes. I don't have full notes, so.
Sure.
A motion to waive the first reading, right?
Yeah, and so what we do is we have the first reading where we kind of explain it, and then the second reading is when we usually approve it. So if people have questions in between, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I'll get the answers to you.
Okay. So, should we do a reading, I mean, individually or as a group?
I would do it as a group.
Okay, so I'd like to, make a motion to waive the first reading for policy EBCG, communicable and infectious diseases, EEA, mandatory drug and alcohol testing, EEA-EA-R, which is mandatory drug and alcohol testing for school bus and commercial vehicles drivers, GBGA, staff health, GLCA, physical examination of students, JLCG, exclusion of students who present a hazard. Yeah, that's it, that core group.
Stephen seconds.
And what you'll see on the policies, if we look at EBCG, on the left-hand side, it says new. So we don't have it, it's brand new. When you compare that policy, which is pretty long, to EEA, the yellow is language that we don't have in our current policy or that's being revised. So it kind of helps a little bit when you're trying to look at policies to know what's been changed. The same with EEA, Staff health, quite a bit of the language has been changed in GBGA. JLCA is brand new. We didn't have that policy.
I thought we did have that policy. I thought I remember that policy from when I was on the committee.
No, we had this conversation, though. It was listed somewhere else, and Nancy Pajot did get back to me, and I have information to circle back to policy committee about.
Well, it had been standard practice, so I think that's why we
Yes.
all kind of thought it was a policy, but, okay, so, yeah, and just to clarify what Joanne said, a lot of we have been adopting the New Hampshire School Board Association policies in general when they are very similar to our policies, to standardize the language and trying to eliminate or not always adopting optional policies if we as a board committee find them not necessary. So there were a few policies that were optional that we reviewed but did not accept, but otherwise, yeah, otherwise they're moving forward.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to waive the first reading, raise your hand. Okay, it's unanimous, 8-0. Now we'd like to have a discussion to acknowledge the $1,000 donation from the Byrne Foundation for the Student of the Month program at LAS.
We are very grateful for this, the funding of this program, so thank you very much.
Anybody have any questions? Stephen?
How does that money get used for this program?
No, I'm not quite sure. I know that in her note, she thanked the high school for providing some details, and I just noticed that. So I wrote a note to myself to check in with Ian and ask that question.
Is there more to the program other than having the student's name on the sign on the billboard outside?
I know that I sign off on a letter, but it seems as though there's other things that they're doing as well at the high school level. I don't know if Miles, yeah, I'm not quite sure off the top of my head, so I don't want to misspeak, but I did write a note to ask Ian what kinds of things we do with it.
Okay, moving on to committee updates. Finance and Facilities Committee, they met on Thursday, March 3rd, and the next meeting, I believe, is actually April 7th at 4 p.m. at the SAU office. Is that right, Aaron?
That's correct.
I had to quickly look. Policy Committee met Thursday, February 24th. The next meeting is Thursday, April 7th at 8:30 a.m. at the SAU office. The Education Committee met Monday, March 21st. Are there any updates from that meeting?
We didn't actually meet, we didn't have a quorum, so we're going to reschedule that meeting probably before the April 18th meeting, so it's to be determined.
Okay. And then will you still have the April 18th meeting, or
Depending on
that'll
how
be
close it is.
that'll be to be determined as well? Okay,
Right.
excellent. P&N Committee met on Thursday, February 3rd, and it sounds like some of those will be scheduled coming up soon. Student Wellness Advisory Committee, the next meeting is Wednesday, May 4th at 3:15 p.m. at the SAU office. Hartford Area Career Technical Center met Tuesday, March 8th. Is there an update for that? Because I don't think we had a board meeting since then.
Which one?
The Hartford Area Career Tech Center?
Yes, that's the one where I mentioned they were talking about adding the literacy support position.
Okay.
They also are doing an amazing mural that staff and students participated in providing suggestions and ideas. If you've ever had a chance to walk through the center, they have lots of paintings and things like that. They've hired an outside group to do the mural for the front entrance. It's really amazing.
Okay, and that next meeting is Tuesday, May 3rd at 10 a.m. The area committee met on Tuesday, February 22nd. The next meeting is Tuesday, May 24th, 6 p.m. at the Grantham Village School. And then the City School Joint Task Force next meeting is Thursday, May 19th, 6 p.m. at Lebanon City Hall. I gotta find where the rest of my agenda went. Oh, and then their Lebanon High School Track Fundraising Subcommittee, the next meeting, has that been set yet?
I'm not quite sure. Is anybody else other than, Richard usually keeps me, do you know? Okay.
Okay, it's to be determined, 6 p.m. at the little Lebanon Middle School cafeteria. And are there any future agenda items or board member recommendations for future items?
I just have a question, actually. Can I ask that now? So can you tell me, Joanne, where are the committee minutes, the board committee minutes kept?
It should be on the website under board and then board committees, and there should be a.
So like I'm looking at that now, and all they have are a couple of agendas as of February 2022, but there's no minutes here for any of them. So
Well, I think once they're finalized, they're put in the draft version's always put in the packet.
Right, but I mean for the public who wants to
whatever they
access,
have.
because they're
Right.
all public meetings.
I
so
thought that they were being posted to that site, because I would tell Lori that they've been finalized, and so I thought she was putting them there.
So there's not even a place for them to be. So
Yeah, okay.
I think it's in the interest of transparency, we should be posting all of those minutes for all of those committees. So if there's a falling down somewhere, we just need to rectify it because they need to be accessible to the public.
Okay, just to clarify though, they won't be posted there until they're finalized.
Right, until
and
they're
part of the minute,
finalized,
right.
absolutely. But at least they're there at some point. We've got nothing for the whole year, so
Right.
we know that they took place.
Any other future agenda items, board member recommendations? Okay, the next school board meeting is Wednesday, April 6th, 6:30 p.m. at the Lebanon Middle School cafeteria. I guess there's no other business, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I'll
Do I have
second.
a second? Lil, a second. All those in favor of adjourning? Well, we almost weren't unanimous, but we are now 8-0. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
It's April vacation, so the board wanted to meet on April 6th.
It's hard to remember, but yeah.